Georg Schweinfurth was a German botanist and ethnographer who traveled through northeastern and central Africa in the mid-19th century. He was well known for his time period and became very well known after publishing The Heart of Africa, which described his exploration and research in Central Africa. Schweinfurth was a botanist by trade, and there are numerous accounts of botany within the Heart of Africa. However, Schweinfurth was also dedicated much of his research and exploration to anthropology, writing detailed ethnographies of the primitive African people of Central Africa. Schweinfurth writes on a wide variety of subjects within the Heart of Africa. All of these descriptions exhibit details about the author himself, and I will be placing them within the context of European exploration of Africa. Schweinfurth's expeditions predate the formal European colonization of Africa that would occur in the decades to follow. For this reason, his accounts demonstrate how early explorers viewed Africa and its people. Georg Schweinfurth came from a drastically different culture than the one he is describing, and that influences his opinion. European concepts of religion, politics, romanticism, and the Africans themselves all greatly impacted his account. While Schweinfurth would prove to be a gifted anthropologist, botany was his area of expertise. His profession allowed him to explore other passions of travel and ethnography, paving the way for his exploration of Central Africa. It is clear that his passion truly lies in nature, and it is when describing nature that his best writing really shows. He produces romantic descriptions of local plants and animals, utilizing a wide variety of literary tools and demonstrating his skill in descriptive writing. For example, when describing a view from an elevated position, he remarks that splendid groups of acacias in three varieties, with groves of holy thorn, overgrown by hanging foliage of graceful climbers, made the water appear like a bright green luxuriance of gay tangles. This is just one example of the romantic writing that exists throughout the Heart of Africa. Romanticism originated in Europe in the late 18th century and reached its peak in the early and mid-19th century. However, the movement would continue on long after that and clearly influenced Schweinfurth's writing and exploration. The Niam people are one of the many groups described within Schweinfurth's account. His description of these people can be interpreted to reflect a commonly held European views. Schweinfurth's description of Niam religion, warrior culture, and cannibalism all reflect his European perspective. The Niam culture is centered around war. Their leader and the most powerful man in their culture is their war leader. The Schweinfurth summarizes by writing that, "Nowhere in any part of Africa have I ever come across a people that in every attitude and every motion exhibit such thorough mastery over all circumstances of war." While Schweinfurth often disapproves of the ways of the Niam, this is one aspect of their culture that he seems to approve of. This likely represents an ideal of accepting war and militarism that was held by many Europeans in the 19th century. This viewpoint is significant because in many ways contributed to the start of the First World War. While we cannot assume that all European explorers shared Schweinfurth's acceptance of African tribes being heavily militarized, it is entirely possible that many of them shared his view. However, this viewpoint would be short-lived. European powers would soon be looking to colonize as much of Africa as possible, and an armed population would be a hindrance to this operation. Cannibalism also had a major role in Niam culture. In fact, the name Niam translates to eaters. He admits that before visiting these people, he doubted the legitimacy of the stories he had heard. However, after observing them for quite some time, he noted how cannibalism was widely accepted practice in their culture. Schweinfurth writes that the accuracy of the reports of cannibalism, which has uniformly been attributed to the Niam by every nation which has any knowledge of all of their existence, would be questioned by no one who had a fair opportunity of investigating the origin of my collection of skulls. This is not to say that all Niam practice cannibalism, but it certainly played an important role in their culture. In fact, war and cannibalism often go hand in hand, as the Niam tend to eat warriors who fall on the battlefield. While Schweinfurth approves of the warrior culture of the Niam, he certainly does not approve of their cannibalistic practices, referring to them as hideous and a revolting custom. Obviously, most African tribes did not practice this terrible custom, but it's descriptions like these that stood out to many Europeans. Reports like this from early European explorers led to many Europeans viewing Africans as nothing more than barbaric heathens. Schweinfurth describes a practice called buru, which is the closest thing to Niam have to a Christian prayer. This process involves rubbing two pieces of wood together and then making a decision based on the outcome. Schweinfurth does not consider this religion, writing that none of the natives of Gazelle district may be credited with the faintest conception of true religion. While this practice differs drastically from Christianity, modern anthropologists would still consider this to be a form of religious practice. This shows that Schweinfurth had difficulty understanding religious practices in Africa because of his Christian background, or at least he confronted it with some bias. It is likely that many other European explorers had similar reactions because of their Christian backgrounds. Georg Schweinfurth's The Heart of Africa reflects how European ideals, traditions, and practices influenced his expedition, and placing these views into context of European exploration of Africa demonstrates the historical significance of said ideals.